Why are so many kids having seizures nowadays? My son, when he was 7, had a seizure at school. It was the beginning of the school year, around October. I got a call. I was driving from a work meeting that he had been rushed to the emergency room. Had a full-blown, what people would call a grand mal seizure. The medical term for it is generalized seizure. And through the ensuing weeks, he was diagnosed with generalized seizure tendency, which doesn't really say anything. It just means he tends to have generalized seizures, or he tends to have these grand mal type seizures. And there were some things that just didn't add up for my wife and I. There were 6 kids in the children's hospital where he was taken, and 5 of them were there for seizures that morning. And when we talked to the staff at the school, remember this was the beginning of October, he was the 3rd or 4th seizure that had happened at his school. And we just felt like, why are so many kids having seizures? This has got to be an environmental thing or a dietary thing. That just wasn't a thing when I was a kid. It was very rare that kids would have seizures. And of course, the neurologist wanted to put him on some pretty intense medicine. The side effects listed were, mood change, personality change, all kinds of pretty scary things, suicidal thoughts. And we had another family in our neighborhood whose son had had seizures, and they had put him on that medicine, and eventually it wasn't working well enough, and so they put him on a more intense medicine. And on Halloween one year, they called the emergency line because he started seizing and wasn't stopping, and the person on the other line told them to up the dose. And so they did, and it essentially fried his brain. He went from being a normal, walking, talking 2-year-old, I think he was only 2 at the time, and to just like a drooling shell of a child. And this family went through obviously a lot of heartbreak, and came to our aid when we were going through this, and gave us some recommendations of more natural ways that we could go about giving different supplements, like omega-3s and some other things to try and help heal our son's gut. And my wife did hundreds of hours of research into how the brain works and what might be causing these seizures. And the research is starting to catch up with what she found out, but it's still not well known, and it's definitely not prescribed because there's no money behind it. If anything, it's the opposite for the food companies. But what we found was that your brain has these 2 mechanisms for kind of speeding up brain activity or calming it down. And the one is called glutamine. That's what speeds up neurological activity in your brain. And GABA calms it down on the other side. And so you can take these as supplements. Some people take GABA to try and calm down. But glutamine is, glutamate is naturally occurring in a lot of different foods. Some foods have high levels of glutamate, like walnuts or Parmesan cheese. But the food companies in our modern era have figured out that glutamate stimulates neurological activity and excites your brain, which they want. They want that to be associated with their food products. And so they concentrate what are called free glutamates, and they put them in our food, especially ultra-processed foods. So the most demonized one of these is monosodium glutamate, MSG, and a lot of people will say no MSG and whatever else. But I feel like that's kind of a misdirect, because in reality, it hides under about 40 different names in these food labels. And it can be things that are seemingly innocuous, like spices or natural flavors. And because of the laws, at least in the United States, the food companies are able to concentrate and put these free glutamates in our food under these labels to hide their proprietary recipes. And so what we did as a family is we just went completely away from any store-bought packaged foods and went to just a whole food diet. People thought our son couldn't have sugar. It really wasn't related to sugar. It was just related to all the garbage, fake ingredients in all of these ultra-processed foods. And of course, the neurologist kind of laughed my wife out of the room and said that, he literally said this. He said, "Diet has nothing to do with your son's seizures," which is just about the dumbest thing that I've ever heard. Like, if you have any problem, I promise you that what you're putting in your body has something to do with it. The fuel that you put in your body definitely influences every aspect of your health. And don't ever let a doctor tell you that that's not true. Just because they don't take nutrition classes doesn't mean that nutrition isn't the most important way to maintain your health. So anyway, we had to go our own way. And our son, after switching to this diet, stopped having seizures. He didn't have a seizure for about a year. And then he went on a trip with my brother. And my brother wasn't really clear on what he could and couldn't eat. And they stopped at a gas station and bought some Chex Mix, which is like one of the worst things you could buy. Any kind of salty, packaged, crunchy food is just loaded with free glutamates. And so he ate this Chex Mix, and the next day he had a seizure after not having a seizure for a year. And so, anytime the medical institutions and doctors are telling you that you're stupid, you don't know what you're talking about, there's a little bit of doubt in your mind, even when the evidence is stacking up in your favor. And so this was kind of the last nail in the coffin for us, where we're like, this is it. I mean, we've been doing this and going out of our way to avoid all these things, which is really difficult with a 7 and 8-year-old boy who wants to go to parties and school and just be a normal kid and eat what everyone else is eating. But we were able to avoid it long enough that he then, we had enough evidence that it was very solid. And eventually we got a pediatrician that was much more holistic minded. And he was shocked at our knowledge and understanding of these things and how they work in the brain and body. And he added some recommendations for supplements that we could give our son to help heal his gut and his blood-brain barrier. Because most people don't have these intense reactions to eating excess free glutamates, because their brain will limit the amount of the substance that it lets in as a self-preservation mechanism. And for those that don't, like my son, they just get overloaded, and then the self-preservation mechanism is to shut down, and that's when they have a seizure, when the neurons are just going too crazy. So anyway, he helped us get our son on a protocol that he said, if you can go 2 years without a seizure and take some of these supplements to heal his brain and his body, then he'll likely be okay. And that's what happened. So now he's I think 7 or 6 years now, 6 years without a seizure. And he can eat some of those things. He went on a trip recently with some friends, and they had a whole cabinet full of that kind of packaged garbage, and he ate it all week and he was fine. And so he was able to heal his brain and his body, and now he can live a more quote unquote normal life. Not that we like to have those things in his diet, but it's nice to be able to just act like a normal kid and enjoy some indulgences every once in a while. So if you or someone you know has a child that is having seizures and they just can't figure it out, we've had so many people reach out to us over the years, and we've kind of told them this story. My wife has even put together a package of recipes and how-tos and details on, what to avoid and the supplements to take. Please comment, reach out, share this video with them. We would love to share those things with them and bless the lives of other families that are going through something similar to what we went through, because it can feel very scary and very lonely. And the only thing that I'll tell you is that most everyone that we've shared these things with has not been willing to do what it takes to follow through and be consistent enough to heal their child, because it takes consistency, and our world is loaded with all kinds of nasty food ingredients, especially if you live in the United States. So please share it and just let them know it's not going to be an easy road, but it will totally be worth it. Our son is approaching the age when he will be able to get his learner's permit for driving and then be able to get a driver's license. And I can only imagine how difficult it would be if he was still having seizures and he couldn't do that. Couldn't go swimming without a life jacket. Couldn't do so many of these different things that, constitute a normal life. And so, it might be hard in the short term, or maybe even in the long term if you end up needing to do that diet forever. But it's a whole lot better than not being able to have a driver's license and being worried that you're going to drown if you go swimming. So that's it for today. Let me know if there's another topic you want me to talk about.